baby falls from heaven. Each is born with untapped potential, yet most are bound to the ordinary, lost in the mundane. No matter how hard they try, they cannot escape the fate of cause and effect. Or perhaps this one is different.
Hey guys, in this video, I want to talk about my main manual level design, what happened here, and what components I use, and also what material, including blueprint, I've used for this level. Okay, let's come back to where the player start is. The whole idea I had is that I will be spawning a main manual in front of your face, basically in front of the viewport, and it constantly follows where your focus is at. And once you clicked start a new game, you will be falling down from the sky, and once it's hit a certain altitude, in my case it's this trigger box, it will load you into the nude map. First, let's talk about how the manual system is set up. We used a manual switcher in this case. Of course, it's 3D widget, and we had 4 different widget blueprint as the sub manual for this widget switcher. The first one is main manual, has 4 buttons, and the 4 buttons functionality is that once you click play, it'll go to the continue or new game, and once you click back, the back functionality works for all the 3 different sub menus. Yeah, and once you click setting, it goes to setting, and once it you click credit, it goes to credit. Yeah, simple as that. The fun thing, I think, like the really fun thing I want to talk about is how it rotates. And to implement the rotation is that I created another blueprint that calls a function that has to rotate main manual. It basically just constantly rotates it. I believe I call it per tick, basically per second or per system second, whatever to make you understand it easier. It will call this rotate manual, so it will constantly follow where player's camera is at. It gets the player's rotation and also location, and it gets the velocity, and it does velocity interpolation to whatever its target it wants to be, right? And also it does rotation interpolation as well. So we have this smooth type of gliding, sliding type of animation, not just in your face all the time. And we want to be able to shoot out some laser from our index finger, so we can constantly tell player that where they are pointing at. So in order to do that, what my approach was, I had 2 spline component, one coming from the left hand, basically the index finger, or the aim, whatever you call it, and one coming from the right, and one coming from the left, right? Spline mesh, and also the spline line. So to set it up is that once we figured out that we are pointing at the 3D widget, we are pointing at the manual, we want to update the location, basically like the end of the spline mesh, and also the beginning, also the start of the spline mesh. Once it's updated, we want to display it, and we want to set an endpoint on the 3D widget, so the spline doesn't go forward forever. And once we find out that our finger is no longer pointing at the manual or any 3D widgets, we would call this collapse spline mesh function, so that we are able to set the endpoint to the starting point. So basically no spline will be showing. That is the approach, and there are many other functions, but I'm not going to showcase each single one of them to show you how it works. So what is happening here is basically that once we find out the VR pawn, basically the pawn player's controlling starts playing, it delays 0.5 second, and then it checks if it's the main menu map, and if it is, we spawn the UMG display. We basically spawn the main menu in front of the player, and the player gets to, you know, click on the different options, choose to either play the game, to play a new game, or, you know, quit, change setting, all that stuff. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk about is the shader. It's the CelShader, and I want to showcase what I made, what I programmed, and I want to explain it a little bit, how and why it looks the way it is. As you can see, they are saturated in certain ways and into certain different colors. And why is that? I want to showcase how that is done a little bit. Okay, so all you need to know from the graph is that we used some clamping, floor, and also just extra steps to make sure that we're able to sort of like categorize the different degree of shadows. For example, from the lightest to the darkest, right? It's to say it's from 0 to 100, right? 0 being the lightest, 100 being the darkest, right? So basically like covered up with shadow, right? None of the light is getting reflected on it. So what it does in this whole graph is basically make 0 to 10, they become 0, and 11 to 20, they become 10. You get a drill, right? So what it does is it divides this 100 different degrees of shadow into 10 different levels, and these 10 different level of shadow are displayed instead of, you know, 0 to 100. So that's how the CelShader, or, you know, cartoon shader works. And of course, in my case, I exposed a lot of components, a lot of variables. I am so sorry, as I can change the steps. For example, if I change it to 1, it would just look like one color. It has no degree to any shadow. And if I give it more step, as you can see that more layers, more color would be coming out. You know, more different levels it would have. If we do like 100, you know, I can't even tell at this point, but, you know, it would be it would be closer to what a realistic shadow would look like. And in my case, I'll just keep it as a 5 because 5 works for my project. And let's take a look at the level blueprint. So once it starts playing, once the game starts playing, I want to play a background music, and I want to set the gravity to 0 for our character. So basically it will be floating right here, right? It will be floating right here. And once the player decides to, you know, I want to have a new game, once he plays on start a new game, it will fall down. I will set the gravity scale to something above 1, at least above 0. In my case, I think it was like a 3 or a 4, and it will be keep falling. And once it overlaps this trigger box, as you can see, it's like very freaking huge and flat. And once it overlaps, you are loaded into the new map, right? You will be starting your journey into the Veggie. And this is it. This is what the most important functionalities, which I believe that happened in this level. You know, mostly the manual, and also how and why I choose to have this type of art style. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.